So in this video, I really just want to take a look at and go over almost all of these leaks we've been seeing around Fallout 76. Of course, the trailer, or really more the teaser trailer, just dropped yesterday. Almost immediately following that, a ton of information was leaked from third-party sources not associated with Bethesda, claiming to have actual original sources from within Bethesda. This is probably why you've been hearing some things like multiplayer within the game, base building being a heavy component of the game, and it actually being compared heavily to the video game Rust. And in addition, actually look at some of Bethesda's responses to this, because a few of the different developers have responded on their Instagram, on Twitter, that are largely going unnoticed, so I wanted to bring some attention to those. If you guys enjoy this content or any of the Fallout 76 coverage, you can subscribe. As you can expect, there's going to be a lot more coming. I'm actually going to E3 myself, so I'll hopefully be able to bring you some stuff firsthand. First and foremost, let's actually start things off with Schreier. He's probably been the most outspoken and just the most known out of all of these leakers. If you don't know, he's actually an editor at Kotaku, which is a website that posts a lot of news about gaming, as well as many other things. So he was one of the first guys to actually start mentioning the multiplayer leaks, or how Fallout 76 is actually going to have a heavy multiplayer component. His leaks in particular actually began before the trailer and the original announcement. After we got that teaser, he said that it's not going to be a remaster, which obviously is a correct prediction. We didn't get a remaster, we got a totally new game. So for a lot of people, that gave him a lot of validity, in addition to him actually being an industry professional who correctly predicted Fallout 4 quite a few years ago, but we'll get back to that in a second. So the main thing he puts forward that has been getting a lot of attention is that Fallout 76 is going to be an online game developed by both Bethesda Game Studios in Maryland, which is their main office, as well as in Austin, which is the former Battlecry Studios. He then goes on to mention that it's not actually an MMO. A lot of people kind of got scared from his initial tweet that it could be an MMO. And the tweet that really stands out to me is actually one where he kind of justifies, or what he's been using as his justification for leaking this information. And more or less what he's saying is that if you actually watch the Fallout 76 teaser trailer, at face value, it just looks like your traditional Fallout. Obviously, the big twist being it takes place only 25 years after the bombs dropped, while all the other games take place 100 years plus later. But nowhere in the trailer does it really suggest that it's going to play any differently, and it actually is. It's going to be a multiplayer game. The exact quote saying, "If you spend weeks getting hyped for a single-player RPG, you'll be disappointed. Just looking out for you guys." And then finally, he makes an article on Kotaku, actually kind of just sharing everything he has picked up. In this, he mentions that he has 3 people familiar with the project actually giving this information to him, so you could almost assume that's people within Bethesda, and that they're saying this is actually going to be more of an experimental release. It's going to be a spin-off that is quite distinctively different from some of the previous Fallout games. But going on to detail that it's actually going to feature quests and a story like all the other Fallouts, but even beyond that also be heavy on base building, similar to how Fallout 4 had the settlement system implemented, and then finally actually going to have a survival-based multiplayer, or survival-based multiplayer mechanics is the exact quote. Also in that same article, the sources say that this was actually originally kind of a prototype variant for Fallout 4 multiplayer. This is something that we actually have heard about in the past. I made a full video on the multiplayer leaks, but Todd Howard did say in the past that they experimented with the idea of multiplayer with Fallout as they do with many of their games, and it eventually just was cut from the game because it didn't really work. And then finally in that article, someone says it kind of sounds like Ark, and the same author of that article, Schreier, actually says, yeah, he's heard people making comparisons between Fallout 76 and Ark Survival Evolved. If you don't know, Ark Survival Evolved was an open world game that featured building, dinosaurs, it had survival aspects, it was really lacking in the story department, but it also did feature mods. So this was by far the biggest and most prolific of these leaks, and although, I mean, whether you want to believe it or not is up to you, something I do want to bring to the table that I feel like only a few people are talking about is the fact that Schreier actually correctly predicted Fallout 4. I kind of touched on that earlier. He showed leaked documents from within Bethesda and actually had the script for the intro bit of Fallout 4, and all of that information was correct. This was released back in 2013, of course Fallout 4 getting revealed in 2015. Well, following that, apparently he was actually blacklisted from Bethesda. I assume that means he's not going to get some of the promotional content, not get game review codes, and not get invited to some of the press conferences. Now, there's definitely 2 major takeaways you could have from this. Obviously, this guy is on Bethesda's radar somewhat, even if it's in a bad way. You could almost say he's infamous within Bethesda. How plausible would it be for Bethesda or employees within Bethesda to deliberately screw with him based on what he did in the past? Invariably, at their E3 conference, we're going to find out if Fallout 76 truly is multiplayer. If it turns out to not be multiplayer, this guy's going to look like a massive idiot. It's definitely going to take a hit on his career just because of how much attention he's getting around these claims. Now, I also kind of think that would be kind of petty on Bethesda to do that, but again, just something to think about, and it's something that I was thinking about. At the same time, you could look at it on the flip side, maybe people within Bethesda who had information that they wanted to leak would specifically seek out this guy because they know he's blacklisted. He doesn't really have much more to lose from publishing these compared to other press outlets that still do have their media coverage to lose. They may not get invited to the press conferences anymore, and they may not get review codes. Either way, that's the major leak. That's probably the one you've heard about. So let's move on to some of the other lesser known ones that are also pretty interesting. Then we also have what is kind of a minor leak from Crecente. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's actually going to be the video game editor at Variety, which is a fairly large news source. And in this, he says that he's been hearing rumblings that the game is heavily focused on building out a base and how he personally likes that. I'm going to go through some of these other leaks because a lot of things seem to be coinciding with this somewhat. Obviously, the initial leak from Jason is heavily focused on multiplayer, but also does mention how base building is going to be a component. Then we have the 4chan leaks, or one of the 4chan leaks. This one's of particular interest because it's not posted recently. None of this information came out in the past week, but actually in December of 2017. So 6 months ago on a post, someone said in response to speculation about the next game that it's going to be Fallout 76, a Fallout themed Rust clone coming soon. Rust, of course, being a game heavily focused around survival, multiplayer, and base building. And interestingly enough, the comparison that's being made here, Rust wasn't super popular at that time. I mean, 6 months ago it was relevant, but that was really the rise of PUBG. Rust definitely wasn't nearly as relevant as it was years prior and had a significant fall from grace. From there, he makes a few other comments about the game. The only real big takeaway outside of the actual prediction of it being Fallout 76 is it's going to be set alongside an interstate highway. That obviously is quite plausible. If you actually look at a map of the interstate highways around West Virginia to Washington, D.C., the area we know this game is going to be taking place, there are a ton of intersections there. So apparently the same 4chan leaker, the person that correctly predicted this game 6 months ago, also subsequently made a Reddit thread about some more leaks. It doesn't seem like there's any verification behind this particular rumor, but I'll go over it just to humor you. I've had a lot of people sending me this. I personally think this is total BS, but either way, he says he's a source inside Bethesda. It's going to be an open world with improvised weapons and a base building centered game. A scavenger from the surface will be the main character. This is a theory a lot of people have because if you don't know, the Vault 76 was actually featured in previous Fallout games. In those previous Fallout games, there were log entries saying that the vault was supposed to open after 20 years. Yet in the trailer of Fallout 76, it's actually shown as 25 years later. So there's a 5-year discrepancy here. A lot of people are speculating that the person you see in the trailer isn't actually a vault inhabitant, but actually a scavenger who's entering into the vault after the fact. So this part's interesting. He says co-op, but not an MMO or Rust-like, despite the fact that previously it did say it was going to be Rust-like. He says Bethesda are in panic mode about these rumors and actually want to release further info soon to cut it off. This is something I actually mentioned, that if this isn't a multiplayer game or with all these crazy rumors going around, people are paying attention to the rumors more so than the reveal lately, I feel like. That is certainly a dangerous game for Bethesda, and unrealistic expectations may be set here that could end up blowing up in their face at the E3. Right now, sentiment definitely isn't good. He says it's an interstate in Northern Virginia, it's an RPG. It's an upgraded Fallout 4 creation engine. Just looking at the trailer, you could kind of tell that if you're familiar with the creation engine. He says there's going to be a Elder Scrolls announcement at E3. I find this to be extremely unlikely because Bethesda has this whole trend of actually announcing games and subsequently releasing them within the same year. Plus, in the past, they said 2 new game releases will come out before the next Elder Scrolls, but maybe this is going to be a spin-off, and that one was referencing the Elder Scrolls 6. He says it'll come with the phone app. Again, something that a lot of us are expecting. They did it with Fallout 4 and Fallout Shelter. It was a huge success. They'll probably do it again. Not Rust-like, we'll have a voice protagonist, 6 factions, 3 of which we actually saw in previous games. The Fallout 4 build system was actually a test for this game. And then this final line, which totally makes me not believe this, is no external mods outside of Creation Club. And they're going to try and cite that we can't have external mods anymore due to the adult mods and a security concern. I'd say that line alone makes this sound like total BS. I would not believe this leak whatsoever. Because if Bethesda cuts out modding from their future game, you're talking about taking a huge chunk of your audience away. And I even personally, I'm still going to buy the game, I'll still cover the game, but I would certainly be very disappointed in any Fallout release that doesn't have mod support. Then we have some leaks from the Fallout 76 Twitter account. This is claiming to be the official Twitter account of Fallout 76. Again, I would say this is probably BS. It's probably somebody that just registered the account very quickly. I don't see any reason why Bethesda wouldn't be retweeting the tweets from this account or things like that. that, but it's of interest because they actually tweeted something and then subsequently deleted it, saying the release date is October 23rd, 2018. There was actually a video with the Alpha and Omega statement in it, that being something that was actually stated in Fallout 3. October 23rd being the day the bombs dropped, and it does actually happen to be a Tuesday, which is of course the day Bethesda has pretty much released all of their modern titles. Obviously, I also think this leak is total BS. And then we actually have the Reddit leak. This one's of particular interest because more or less the story with this one is somebody posted on the gaming subreddit that Bethesda is announcing Fallout Vault 76. Obviously, that's not actually the title of the game, but it's pretty close. This was posted the morning of the teaser trailer, before the teaser trailer actually came out. I think it was a few hours before. So of course we kind of knew it was a Fallout based off the tease from the previous day, the image we saw or the GIF we saw. But no one was speculating Fallout Vault 76. That was just way out there. So maybe it's just a lucky guess, but this also has that base building element, or at least the poster here also mentions how it's going to be heavily surrounded in that base building element. So that's been a theme we've seen through multiple of these leaks, and I think that actually might be true. Again, I don't really see how someone would have correctly predicted Fallout Vault 76. That would be one like hell of a Hail Mary. And the fact that from multiple different sources we're seeing this base building thing, I would actually say it's pretty plausible. Alright, so at least as far as I can tell, those were all of the major leaks we've seen and all the major leaks people are referencing. Hopefully now you understand why people are 1, saying it's going to be multiplayer, 2, making big comparisons to Rust, and 3, where the survival and base building aspects are coming from. I sprinkled my opinions lightly throughout this video, but hopefully you can make your own takeaways from this. I will have everything I just showed you linked down below, but in addition, we actually got a little bit more than that. Bethesda themselves have had a few responses through different sources. So one of the first responses we got on Twitter was actually from Matt Frary. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's actually the director of PR at Bethesda Softworks. He posted this on Twitter. It's actually a GIF, but I'm only taking an image of it. You get the idea. With the caption, "I just rolled my eyes so hard." I think he meant to say they fell out my head, or fell out of my head. Some people tried to ask him what about, but he never really gave an answer. But he posted this around the time that multiplayer rumor was actually gaining some traction and gaining steam. Specifically the one from Jason Schreier. This is right around when he was posting multiple of these articles on Kotaku. Let's just say hypothetically that Fallout 76 actually is a traditional Fallout experience. If someone said it's going to be base building focused with survival elements and multiplayer, I would probably have a similar response to this one. I'm not sure what the takeaway from this is, but I would guess some of the leaks we're seeing aren't entirely accurate. Maybe it's supporting that hypothesis that people are actually just screwing with Jason Schreier because he's been blacklisted. But moving on, we also have a response from Pete Hines. Someone tweeted at Pete Hines, who is the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing and Communications at Bethesda Softworks, where they say, "I know you can't give a real answer, but with all of the news about Fallout 76, should be reading into any of that at all, or just stick by and listen to the good old official Bethesda stuff." And of course, by news, he means all these leaks, multiplayer, base building, survival. And Pete Hines responds, "Pretty sure you already know my answer to this," and that meaning, no, don't listen to the leaks and actually just listen to the information we get from Bethesda. This kind of follows a similar theme of maybe some of these leaks are inaccurate or not as accurate as they're claiming to be. And then finally, we have one from Dennis Mejalones. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. He's actually the senior character artist at Bethesda Game Studios specifically, and someone responded to a post on Instagram saying, "If it's Fallout Rust Edition, I will ram my head into a wall out of frustration." His response being, "Before you destroy your head, wait until you know more about it. Besides, I need more time to destroy humanity myself, blah, blah, blah." The follow-up question being, "We'll be staying tuned, no doubt. Big fan of you and Bethesda's work, so my hope is still alive." And then he responds, "I think you will not be disappointed." That's kind of the end of the Bethesda responses, but kind of building off of this final statement, one thing we've been seeing a lot of over the past few months is Bethesda hinting that they're really excited to show us what they're working on. Yeah, that might just be PR talk. I mean, of course, what company wouldn't say they're excited to show you their next game? But at the same time, if this truly is super risky and a super experimental release, changing all these fundamental aspects about Fallout, I just feel like some of these responses might be different. That's my takeaway from this. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. I try to be pretty thorough in this video, cover all the major leaks as well as Bethesda's responses. But before we end things off, I'm going to have a psych fun fact. I know I've been skipping them for the past few days, but since things are dying down, I wanted to start putting them back at the end of videos. And this one's actually going to be a sponsored psych fun fact. It's going to be sponsored by BetterHelp. To put it simply, BetterHelp's more or less going to be a way for you to actually get counseling at your own home. So that could be through text messages, through Skype calls, through phone calls, whatever really you want to suit your needs. The sign up process is super simple. You can actually find like a counselor that really fits your needs and whatever issues you're having, whether it be anxiety, depression, or just other issues that you want to talk to somebody about. They have over 3,000 counselors, so you could actually get a female or a male counselor, a young or an old counselor, depending on what you want personally. In addition, it's quite a bit cheaper than actual traditional therapy, this being $140 to $280 a month, which might seem like a lot, but again, therapy is not cheap, with a lot of therapists actually charging $100 plus per session, which is about an hour. For $200 to $300 a month, you could get unlimited sessions through BetterHelp, and it actually becomes cheaper with subsequent months. This is definitely going to be a cost that's front-loaded, but if you stay with the program, you're actually going to see your cost decreased. Either way, if you guys are interested in this, I will have a link down below. I figure I'm always kind of preaching different psych fun facts, but I may as well give everyone an outlet to actually get help if you have an issue. And if you do, I would definitely do it. I actually signed up for this myself before reaching out to them with the sponsorship. It's pretty easy, and it is definitely a legitimately good company. Either way, for this one, I'm actually going to kind of reuse a psych fun fact, and it's going to be confirmation bias. I know I've done this in a video in the past, but I think it's particularly relevant right now with all the speculation and theorizing about Fallout 76. Confirmation bias is the idea that you're going to put undue weight on ideas or theories that actually support your existing thought process or idea rather than ones that actually go against it. So let's say you personally think that Fallout 76 is going to be a traditional single player RPG from Bethesda. Looking at all these leaks, you will immediately discredit them, try and say how this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and all around just not be very objective. People that actually support your same idea that Fallout 76 is single player, you're going to give undue credit to. You're way less likely to think about how those people are wrong or things like that. It's a very real phenomenon and something that if you're not careful, you can easily fall into. So I just kind of wanted to mention it, so hopefully you can keep it in the back of your head and try and be as objective as possible through these coming days. Either way, I'm just going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.